The feed didn't begin with a warning. No flashing banners, no diplomatic intro, no somber music. Just a pop like a microphone clicking on, and then silence across 2 galaxies. Then came the voice, cold and patient, like a rusted hinge. "This is not war. This is preservation." The alien speaking was High Executive Vexer of Vart Prime, commander of the Unified Peace Authority. He stood with mandible arms folded behind his segmented back, as if posing for a painting. Behind him, rows of galactic soldiers lined up like marble statues, faceless, armor-coated, shimmering with the sheen of merciless order. Earth's image floated behind them on a massive display, soft blue, quiet, so very alive. "We regret the necessity," Vexer continued, his voice translated in real time for every species tuned in. "But humanity's refusal to comply with Standard Peace Regulation 401b leaves us no alternative. They have been warned. They have been studied. They have been deemed unfit for continued existence in their current numbers. No emotion, just precision. By majority vote of the Galactic Council, we hereby authorize the elimination of 22 million human subjects from Earth's planetary grid. Effective now." The signal cut to Earth, a desert town somewhere in what was once the Midwest. A drone's camera panned across civilians. Men in baseball caps, women holding children, elders clutching rosaries, kids in school uniforms. Some stared up at the hovering death craft with defiance. Others blinked in confusion, their breakfast plates still warm. One teenage boy held up a middle finger to the sky. He was the first to vanish. Not disintegrate, not explode, just vanish. A soft blue pulse, then nothing. Then another, and another, and another. By the time it reached 2 million, the Council had added laugh tracks. They didn't mean to, of course. It was just tradition. The intergalactic feed always inserted audience response metadata for mass broadcasts. Someone, somewhere, forgot to disable it. So, as millions of humans were erased like static, a ghostly soundboard of laughter, gasps, and applause echoed across the stars. The Council didn't stop it. They thought it added drama. They were wrong. What do you think? Should they have stopped the broadcast? Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Cosmic Conquerors channel. Before we start, I hope you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so that you receive all the new content, and also share the story with your friends so it reaches as many people as possible. And if you have a story, write it in the comments. Maybe we'll choose one to narrate in the next video. Let's start the story. Pay attention, because there's a small detail that might change your entire perspective and awareness of life. Boon watched it all from a bar in Nevada. A real American bar, sticky counters, a jukebox stuck on AC/DC, and a flickering neon sign outside that said, "Open even if we're not." He didn't cry, didn't swear, just lit a cigarette and stared at the screen. A couple stools down, an old man with a veteran's patch shook his head. "They think we're animals," he muttered. "They think they can walk into our backyard and shoot our dogs, then expect us to thank him for it." Boon took a drag. "We are animals." The screen showed Vexer again. "This concludes Phase 1. May harmony prevail." The old man leaned forward. "You served, didn't you?" Boon didn't answer. Just let the smoke curl upward and disappear into the ceiling fan like a thought he didn't want to finish. On the moon of Draxel 4, an alien bartender named Lunt served pink, luminescent goop to 3 insectoid traders who were watching the same feed. One laughed through its spiracles. They didn't even run, just stood there like stunned livestock. Another leaned back. "I told you, humanity's emotional cortex overrides its logic matrix. They freeze under pressure." The third nodded like raccoons. "Exactly. Loud, unhygienic, chaotic, and impossible to eliminate cleanly." They clinked glasses and toasted to peace. Lunt squinted at the screen. "You don't think they'll retaliate, do you?" The laughter stopped. One of them blinked slowly. "Retaliate with what?" But none of them noticed the man sitting alone in the corner, hooded, silent, watching, recording. He wore jeans and a worn leather jacket. His boots were covered in dust, his knuckles scarred like old highways. He left his drink untouched. When he stood, the screen caught the edge of his reflection just for a second. His face was calm, too calm, like a man who didn't scream when fire came. He waited until it was close, then lit a match. On the Interstellar Commentary channel, two hosts were already spinning the numbers. "Now, keep in mind," chirped host number 1, a gelatinous worm named Fro, 22 million is just a decimal point for Earth's population. "Right you are, Fro," said host number 2, a floating cube with sunglasses. "And studies show human stress thresholds are higher than most mammalian species. They'll process it. They'll adapt." "Exactly." Fro slapped the table with a slime appendage. "This is just galactic pest control." But one of their viewers, deep in orbit over Neptune, didn't find it funny. He was a mechanic on a deep space cargo hauler, human name Danny Range, age 45, former husband, former soccer coach. He was currently standing in front of a panel that said, "FTL Drive Safety Override." He turned the key. The ship vanished into Earth orbit before anyone could stop him. Because some humans don't march, they leap. What would you have done if you were Danny? A day passed. No response from Earth. 2 days, then 5. The Council grew smug. "Their silence is acceptance," said Chancellor Varric, whose skin resembled melted jade. "They recognize the futility of resistance." Vexer agreed. "Emotionally volatile species. They break, not bend." But by the 7th day, something odd began. A satellite near Zeta Parnis began playing music. Not alien hymns, not codes, just rock, old, raw human. The first transmission was "Fortunate Son," followed by "Highway to Hell." Then a long silence, then laughter. Not alien laughter, not synthetic human laughter. Male, deep, and angry. The kind of laughter that says, "You done messed up." It played on loop for 32 hours. The UPA's weapons AI began to glitch. EarthTech, long considered primitive, started hacking into their systems. Slowly, patiently, like termites in a palace. Then came the memes. Screens aboard elite ships began flashing with Earth imagery. Cowboy hats, hot dogs, Chuck Norris quotes. One admiral woke up to find her navigation interface had been replaced by a smiling, blinking caption that read, "Now y'all done it." Back on Earth, Boon walked through a hallway lined with photographs. Each frame showed a different human man: soldier, teacher, priest, farmer, mechanic. The common thread. They were all gone now. At the end of the hallway, a steel door opened. Behind it, 12 men waited. No uniforms, no rank, just looks exchanged like old war songs. Boon nodded once. Council bought the bait. One of them, younger, chuckled. "Told you they'd broadcast it." Another leaned back in his chair, sipping whiskey. "You think they realize yet?" Boon lit another cigarette. "Not yet." "Good." He walked to the center of the room and flipped a red switch. Thousands of displays flickered on. Each showed a ship, a weapon, a face. Each encoded with the same signature, ERRA, Earth Retaliation Archive. Boon exhaled slowly. "Gentlemen, let's start the math." Meanwhile, in a floating gala above Galaction Prime, the elite of the galaxy wined and dined, celebrating Peace Day. Sparkling robes, alien violinists, waiters that floated instead of walked. One hologram glitched during a toast. It began to flicker between the Council's face and a new image, a man smiling, not polished, not pretty, just American. He wore sunglasses. One hand rested on what appeared to be a shotgun. He raised a beer. "Just so y'all know." Pause. The crowd froze. "This was your idea." Then the signal cut. The guests laughed nervously. Some kind of Earth comedy broadcast, they thought. But the wine turned to ash in their throats when the stars outside began to blink out one by one. On Vark Prime, Vexer stood before a command table, watching reports flood in. Disruptions in 5 sectors. 2 moons missing. 1 sun destabilized. He paced. "No declaration of war," muttered his lieutenant. "Just action." Vexer stared at the screen. "Animals," he whispered, but deep inside, something cracked. Not fear, not regret, just the sick realization that they'd misunderstood. Silence. Earth's silence wasn't surrender. It was calculation. The countdown hadn't started when the feed began. It had started long before. He looked closer at one of the reports. It showed Earth's city grids empty. No civilians. All 22 million victims had been gone before the purge. Evacuated, moved, hidden. Vexer's mandibles trembled. They wanted us to film it. His voice cracked, so they could show the galaxy why they'd burn it down. And in the background, the Earth signal cut back in. This time, no music. Just one sentence. A voice. Male human. We don't want reparations. We want subtraction. Then silence again. Not peace. The kind before lightning. Before vengeance learns how to spell extinction. The hum started as a barely audible, low, persistent vibration felt more than heard. The kind of sound that teased the edge of perception, like the air remembering thunder. For most of the galaxy, it went unnoticed. Space always had noise. Solar winds, radio bursts, collapsing stars. Nothing unusual. Until it kept repeating. One beat, then another, then a rhythm. The first to recognize it was an old Lurvian ship engineer orbiting Clyus 9. He stopped mid-diagnostics and tilted his scaled head. The signal was ancient analog, wrapped in layers of static and defiance. He adjusted the receiver and frowned. Then the song hit him. A guitar riff, raucous, rebellious, raw. Some folks are born, made to wave the flag. The engineer blinked. What in the black is a fortunate son? By the third verse, half the UPA satellites across 3 sectors were hijacked. By hour 6, every galactic broadcast had been overridden. Military channels, trade signals, children's educational holos. It ain't me. It ain't me. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a threat. It was a playlist. And it was all Earth. Old music, gritty, rebellious, loud songs sung by men who never wanted to fight but knew how to finish one. Voices soaked in cigarette smoke and war grit. The UPA scrambled to decode the message. Surely it was a cipher, a code for planetary defenses. Why else would Earth blast decades-old rock music across star systems? But every file was clean, just raw tracks from Earth's 20th century. Except one thing. They all started broadcasting 5 minutes before every attack. The ship call of order was the first to vanish. A diplomatic vessel, gold-plated, carrying 39 UPA counselors. It disintegrated mid-transit over Sector J5. There were no signatures, no beam trails, just silence and floating confetti, bits of fried protocol documents and high thread count uniforms. An hour later, the feed returned. Highway to Hell. Full volume. No one claimed responsibility. No one had to. The pattern was undeniable. Signal. Silence. Then death. General Rarvik of the Ulak Armada stared at the screen as the next song began. Another one, something called Back in Black. His 6 hearts thundered in confusion. Why is it always noise? His aide, twitching nervously, whispered, "Sir, our analysts believe the music isn't meant for us." Then who the hell is it for? The lights dimmed. On the exterior cams, every nearby satellite began playing the same track in perfect synchronization. Then the stars blinked. They weren't stars. They were human ships. Small, dark, unregistered. One of them flew so close the general could see the words painted crudely on the hull in red. Missouri says, "Howdy." Then the feed cut. When it returned, the flagship's bridge was empty. Just smoke and the soft crackle of a speaker replaying Sweet Home Alabama. What do you think, at that moment, what should the general have done? Boon stood in the loading bay of an old Earth freighter turned warbird called the Betty. It smelled like grease, rust, and something baked into the walls that could only be described as human despair turned to resolve. He was sharpening a knife, not because he needed to, but because the sound relaxed him. Across from him sat Jace, mid-40s, former firefighter, shoulders like tree trunks, chewing on dry jerky. "They ain't figured it out yet," Jace muttered. Boon didn't look up. "They don't know how to figure us out." Jace smirked. "We're not unpredictable. We're just inconvenient." A siren wailed overhead. One short burst. That was the signal. Another UPA ship had crossed into Zone 6. Another body that hadn't gotten the memo. Boon stood, slipping the knife into his belt. What song this time? Jace asked. Boon walked toward the armory, where crates of old rifles sat beside electromagnetic pulse rods and scavenged alien tech. He smiled. CCR. Across the galaxy, panic began to spread. Not because Earth had declared war, but because Earth hadn't. No official statement, no ambassador, no press conference, just music, then death. A hologram of the Galactic Council convened for an emergency summit. Vexor's face was pale under his kitten. Chancellor Varric slammed a claw on the table. This is not war. This is mockery. No, Vexor whispered. This is art. The room fell silent. Var hissed. What are you saying? Vexor's compound eyes fluttered. They're not fighting. They are performing. Every strike is a show. Every song is a ritual. The surviving counselors murmured among themselves. And why? Var said slowly. Do they not speak? Vexor leaned forward. Because the guilty don't deserve an explanation. Aboard the UPA ship Devotion, Captain Corax initiated standard evasive procedures as the proximity alarm screamed. Show me the grid, he barked. The AI screen lit up. It was filled with tiny human drones shaped like toy airplanes painted with pinup girls and slogans like Texas-flavored pain and Grandpa's second chance. One of them had a bumper sticker, My other ride is a war crime. Corax felt his lungs constrict. Deploy countermeasures. The screen crackled. Before the weapon systems could launch, the ship's PA came alive. Hey there, sugar, said a warm southern voice. I'm Granny, your new ship assistant. You brought this on yourselves. Corax's last words were drowned out by a rising guitar solo. Back on Earth, in an underground bunker carved beneath what used to be Mount Rushmore, Boon stood at the operations table, surrounded by men who looked like they should have been teachers, truckers, and tinkerers. Most of them were. A map hovered above the table, glowing red. Human operations had already reached 12 UPA outposts. Not a single shot fired in defense. They always arrived first with music. You think we're scaring him? Asked Boomer Jenkins, a former auto mechanic turned demolitions expert. He wore a tank top that said, Biden, my time since '81, and aviators too small for his face. Boon didn't smile. No. What then? Boon tapped the map. We're haunting them. The next ship to go dark was the Tranquility's Mercy, a luxury carrier transporting UPA dignitaries from the core worlds to the new expansion rim. It was considered impenetrable. Then the windows started frosting over. Not from cold, but from the inside. Every surface of the ship began to play a looped audio feed, poorly tuned electric guitar, a voice breaking with emotion, and I never dreamed home would burn this slow. One by one, dignitaries began hallucinating, seeing American soldiers from different eras, Vietnam, Korea, Iraq. Some claimed to hear whispering in English. The captain shot himself before the whole did. The ship detonated on the edge of Andre 6. A single escape pod was left untouched. Inside a data cube, one song, painted black. Galactic news cycles exploded. Theories ranged from psychic warfare to time loop curses to experimental memes weaponized into terror. But no theory explained the precision, the pattern, the relentlessness, nor the simplicity. Earth wasn't showing off tech. It was showing intent. Humans had learned something the galaxy had forgotten. Terror isn't loud. It's personal. In a crumbling mining outpost on Harl's Minor, a lone UPA soldier named Commander Yen watched the stars while nursing a broken leg. He was one of the few survivors from a downed squadron ambushed by a group called the Sons of John Henry, Earth's newest strike unit, specializing in hammer-based weaponry. He remembered one of them, a man with a wide-brimmed hat, sleeves rolled to the elbows, smile crooked. He didn't speak. He just sat down a small tape player beside Yen before walking away. When the tape clicked on, Yen expected instructions. Maybe a confession. But all he got was a voice. Warm human, here's what you forgot, friend. You don't get to kill our kin on camera and expect silence. You think we're primitive. The voice paused, like it was savoring the punchline. We invented revenge, then music. Simple man. Boon stood before a mirror in the ship's armory, staring at his own face. It was older than it should have been, Too many years in too many places. He buttoned up the jacket, the same one he wore the day Earth went silent. Behind him, Jace leaned in the doorway. "We doing this next hit?" Boon didn't answer. Jace walked in, handed him a small rectangular object. "They wanted us to send a message." Boon looked down. It was a cassette tape. He raised an eyebrow. Jace smirked. "You know what song?" Boon slid it into the deck. The machine clicked. The soft hiss of analog tape followed. Then the first chord, "Bad Moon Rising." The red light on the deck flashed once. The last UPA fleet had just crossed into Earth's inner orbit. Boon adjusted the volume, then leaned into the mic. He said only 3 words. Not a threat, not a scream, just American, "Hope you're listening." The boots hit the dust like thunder. Not the polished kind worn by galactic officers. These were cracked, old, sun-battered, soaked with history, and just enough blood to whisper when he walked. The man wearing them stepped off the stolen UPA skiff like he built the planet himself, took a look at the alien skyline, and spat chewing tobacco into the red dirt. No formal entrance, no speeches, just the sound of a pump-action shotgun chambering a shell. The planet's name was Draxilin 3, a newly terraformed outpost designed for luxury habitation by high-tier alien dignitaries. Or at least it was supposed to be. Now it was empty. Or worse, quiet. The local UPA garrison hadn't reported in days. Surveillance drones showed flashes of heat signatures, then static. 36 elite troopers, no distress signals, no wreckage. So they sent in the specialist. Not a soldier, not a diplomat, not a drone, just a man. Human, male, mid-40s, beard like sandpaper, hat pulled low. Name unknown. Code name, the Custodian. He didn't come to negotiate. He came to clean. Sergeant Vakes of the Unified Peace Authority watched him land from the control tower. Her squad flanked her. 3 insectoids, 2 feather-scaled reptilians, 1 synthetic, all armored, all anxious. "He's alone?" she asked. The monitor flickered. 1 man, a backpack, a shotgun strapped across his shoulder. One of the reptilians hissed. "It's bait. No one comes alone." Vakes frowned. "Humans do." Her eyes lingered on the screen. The man wasn't scanning for traps. He wasn't flanking or hiding or calling for backup. He was strolling like he was looking for a diner that didn't exist. Then he did something bizarre. He sat right there, middle of the abandoned plaza, cross-legged, took out a sandwich from his bag. White bread, bologna, mustard, and began to eat. "What in the stars is he doing?" Vakes whispered. The man looked directly at one of their surveillance cameras, raised the sandwich, and waved. The ambush was swift. 5 UPA commandos descended in unison, targeting him with non-lethal plasnets, standard protocol for apprehending what the council called rogue high-risk bipeds. He didn't move, not even when the first net arced toward him. The shotgun barked once. The net evaporated mid-air. The others hesitated. That was their mistake. He moved with a rhythm that didn't match any known fighting algorithm. Every motion was human, unrefined, chaotic, instinctive. The kind of movement AIs called combat noise, and therefore ignored. He didn't use stealth tech. He used dirt. Threw it in one eye, spun behind another, fired again. The sound of a pump-action scattergun echoed across the plaza, followed by the dull thunk of armored bodies hitting pavement. 3 seconds, 5 down, 1 left, bleeding neon from a cracked chest plate. The man knelt beside him. Almost polite. "You from around here?" he asked. The alien wheezed something in a dialect the translator struggled with. "Didn't think so." The Custodian stood. "Tell Vexer," he paused, as if tasting the words. "Tell him I cleaned up his mess." Then he walked away. The survivor tried to lift his comm. The Custodian shot it. Privacy matters. Boon watched the footage from orbit. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just sipped black coffee from an old tin cup and watched the man, his man, make poetry out of violence. Jace leaned over his shoulder. "We're just going to let him off leash now?" Boon nodded. "He was never on one." Jace whistled low. "You think they know who he is?" "They will." On the bridge of the flagship consecrator, Admiral Tal banged his clawed fist against the console. "Who the hell is this janitor?" "Not a janitor," replied the intelligence officer, nervously sifting through files. "That's a call sign. Earth Resistance assigned him the title after the incident at Grenell's Verge." "What incident?" The officer swallowed. He removed 37 operatives using only a shovel, 3 wires, and a cassette player. Tal blinked. "That's not possible, sir. They say he once killed a tank with a lawn chair." "Are you mocking me?" "No, sir. That's a direct quote from the survivors." Tal's voice dropped. "You're saying one man is systematically dismantling the UPA's most fortified sectors with a shotgun?" "Yes, sir." Tal leaned forward, the veins in his temple pulsing. "Why a shotgun?" The officer hesitated. "Because, sir, he likes the sound." Down on Draxelin 3, the Custodian walked through empty streets. The shotgun rode his back like a loyal mutt. His steps were slow, almost meditative. He wasn't hunting. He was inviting. From an alley, another squad tried flanking him. He sighed, turned without looking, tossed a small speaker on the ground. A song began. "Ain't no grave." The enemy hesitated. Humans always fought to music. But this song wasn't fast. It was a dirge. A promise. The Custodian whispered, "Y'all brought plasma. I brought pain." 3 seconds later, only silence remained. At the edge of the system, a UPA transmission tried to reach Earth. The message was simple: negotiation requested. The response came not in words, but in images: a burning council flag, a pair of boots walking over alien metals, a hand reloading a shotgun. Then static. General Vexer stood in his war chamber, trembling. "This man is a symbol," he hissed. "He cannot be allowed to persist." "We've dispatched the Reapers, sir," his aide assured him. "They'll deal with him." "Not enough. I want gravity nukes, plasmatides, full orbital fire." The aide hesitated. "Sir, that would violate 27 accords." Vexer's eyes narrowed. So did they. The Custodian stood on a cliff, watching the fire spread through the UPA base below. The smell of burnt circuitry and ozone curled into the clouds like incense. He knelt, pulled out a flask, and took a sip. Behind him, Boon's voice crackled through the calm, "You done?" The Custodian's voice was sandpaper and molasses. "They're cleaned. You left a message." A nod. "Painted it on the hangar." "What's it say?" "A beat. Closed for cleaning." Boon grinned. "Damn right." In a distant bar on a mining moon, a rumor spread about a human who never ran, who didn't need backup, who brought Earth's past to alien futures like a ghost in denim. They said he walked like gravity owed him money. They said he smiled only before gunfire. They said when he showed up, the last sound you'd hear wasn't a plasma blast. It was a pump, and a song, and black. On a holographic news feed, a UPA strategist ranted about human unpredictability. Charts lit up. Patterns showed disaster wherever the Custodian had appeared. But they didn't understand. The pattern wasn't in numbers. It was in grief. It was in the shotgun, a weapon not for war, but for vengeance. It was in his silence. And it was coming closer. Deep within the secure bunkers of the galactic core, where no battle had ever touched, Vexer's personal terminal flickered. One message, text only, "Next planet's yours." There was no sender, no signature, just the weight of consequence. And somewhere, faintly, impossibly, a guitar riff. The declaration didn't come through proper channels. There was no envoy, no emissary in a ceremonial cloak. No orchestra of diplomats walking down red-lit runways flanked by honor guards and holographic flags. The Galactic Council waited for that, expected it. Their protocol sheets were printed, their posture rehearsed. Instead, it arrived as a hacked overlay during the annual Unity broadcast, slicing into the feed mid-speech, right as Chancellor Varric was talking about harmony. The screen glitched. Then the image steadied. A dimly lit wooden room appeared. Earth-style walls scarred with bullet holes, shelves lined with rusted helmets and dog tags. In the center, a man sat behind a table. His face was shadowed. His voice wasn't. "My name doesn't matter," he said. None of us speak for Earth anymore. Not since the broadcast. His fingers drummed against the table. Metal against wood. A single wedding ring glinted under the spotlight. You killed 22 million of ours. We won't appeal. We won't protest. We won't forget. He leaned forward. We're not asking for reparations. A pause. So long it pressed against the chest like a heartbeat held too long. We want subtraction. Then the feed cut across the galaxy. Silence bled into every hall, every chamber, every ship. Then came the countdown. Earth's counteroffensive began with a flicker. Lights dimming across orbital satellites. Comm channels hijacked by Earth's dormant AIs, long thought obsolete. These weren't machines built for diplomacy. They were cold, archived war ghosts, coded in rage, trained in grief. One by one, the planets that voted in favor of Earth's culling began to go dark. First came Harlow Prime. No explosion, no invasion, just a sudden gravitational reversal that pulled its twin moons down onto the cities below. Footage recovered from the surface showed strange human drones broadcasting Sinatra's "My Way" before the crust broke apart. Then Solace 4, where water supplies turned to molten glass after precision orbital drops ignited the oceans. Survivors reported hearing music through the flames, distorted, metallic, and very human. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. They called it terrorism. Boon called it math. Inside Earth's command bunker, an abandoned train station retrofitted with weapon control systems and red-lit radar grids, Boon stood over the table where a three-dimensional projection of the Milky Way flickered. He didn't wear stars, didn't have medals. He looked like a tired mechanic who hadn't slept in days, sleeves rolled up, face grim with something heavier than anger. The Custodian stood beside him, arms crossed, shotgun slung over his back. He hadn't said a word in 2 hours. Didn't need to. Jace cracked open a soda and leaned on the map edge. "We're officially calling it?" he asked. Boon nodded once. The vote passed. Full authorization. Operation Ashes. Jace whistled. "That's not a warning shot. It's a ledger," Boon said. "We're evening it." The Custodian spoke finally, voice low. "They keep asking why we're doing this." Boon stared at the projection as one more alien sun blinked red. "Because they filmed it." The room went quiet. There was something sacred about vengeance done right. Earth's fleets were not sleek. They weren't photogenic. They were ugly, hulking things patched together from old cargo haulers, oil tankers, and space station wreckage. But what they lacked in beauty, they made up for in savagery. Each ship bore a name in paint and pride. Second Amendment, Liberty's Teeth, Widowmaker, the Resolute Redneck. Their crews weren't born soldiers. They were former coal miners, single fathers, ex-baseball coaches, dishwashers turned gunners, ex-cons turned navigators. What they shared was grief, and Earth had made that grief mobile. Aboard the lead vessel, Dust to Dust, an AI named Granny prepared targeting arrays. Her voice was warm with a crackle of radio static and old vinyl. "Sugar," she drawled. "Do I get to bake today?" "Yes, Granny," said Boon. "It's a big oven." As the ship's engines ignited, the Council's flagship, Serenity's Will, tried one final broadcast. "Earth, this is a plea for sanity. Cease hostilities. We will open tribunal discussions." Granny hijacked the channel. Her voice came through with a honeyed sting of something long ignored. "We already opened discussion. Y'all just didn't like the language." The Council ordered the execution of the human diplomat who first delivered Earth's warning. They never got to carry it out because 10 minutes later, the Custodian landed on the platform where the diplomat was held, alone, and left only one survivor, a janitor who would later say he heard music, smelled sulfur, and saw a man whisper, "This is for Kansas City." One by one, galactic warships disappeared, not with glory, but with confusion. They didn't know how to counter Earth's tactics. They'd trained for technological superiority, not human creativity. They never expected duct tape to rewire grav drives. Never imagined Earth Marines would weaponize kitchen pressure cookers, magnets, and children's toy drones. One alien commander reportedly surrendered when his ship's oxygen system was reprogrammed to release the smell of bacon before the hull ruptured. "Why bacon?" he'd asked in his last breath. "Because it's ours," came the reply. Earth wasn't just retaliating. It was rewriting the rules. Vexor watched the spiral from his war tower, hands shaking, mandibles twitching. His species had never lost a war, never faced retribution beyond polite sanctions and delayed treaties. He stared at the death tallies rolling in. Whole planets, cultures that had stood for millennia, now ruins in a transmission feed. He activated a secure line. "I want Earth's surrender." Boon appeared on the screen. He was sharpening a blade. "Wrong timeline," Boon said. "We didn't mean. You meant to be watched and worshipped. You filmed it like a circus. You've made your point." "No," Boon said, soft as thunder. "We're making balance." Vexor leaned forward. "This is genocide." Boon's eyes narrowed. "So was yours." And then he ended the call. The Custodian stood behind him, hand resting on the shotgun. Jace walked in, chewing gum, and gestured to the latest intercepted report. "They're evacuating planets now." Boon raised an eyebrow. "They should." Granny's voice came over the intercom. "Shall we proceed to Phase 3, sweethearts?" The Custodian spoke for the first time in hours. Just 4 words: "We go where they filmed." The UPA had held the original execution broadcast on a space station above the Saraxi Nebula. Sleek, polished, a symbol of peace and progress. Earth sent only one ship. It wasn't a battleship. It was a freighter. The Custodian stepped off it with one thing in his hands, a small, rusted radio. He played it as he walked. "I see a red door and I want it painted black." They opened fire. He didn't stop walking. Boon watched from a distant station as the cameras caught it all. The last thing they saw before the feed cut was the Custodian standing on a balcony of smoke, shotgun across his chest, flames rising behind him. Then silence and Earth's final message: "No empire lasts, especially ones built on cameras." And as the Council watched world after world fall, the last surviving dignitary, a crustacean-like creature with 14 eyes, whispered something into the empty chamber. "They didn't just fight us," he wept. "They taught us what a funeral looks like." And with that, we have reached the end of the story, but stories don't end here. If you like the story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you receive all the new content. And if you have an opinion or something that caught your attention, leave a comment and let's discuss together. I'm waiting for your opinions, and see you in the next story. Bye.